Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is trust. And we get to explore what is trust actually in its essence and what distinction is there between trust and faith. And so we're going to look at the dynamics of trust and how it impacts our lives, what the ramifications of it are. And it should be an interesting conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms, to feel the deliciousness of that sensation, the tickling and the tingling, and allow that to bring you present right here, right now, in this marvelous physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, Roslyn. So good to have you here with us this morning. Welcome. So, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. We're going to talk about trust. And as I was thinking about trust, it also made me think about faith. And so I'm going to do my nerd thing. I'm looking down to bring up the dictionary on my phone here. So we get to do our definitions here of trust and faith. And so the first definition coming up for trust is reliance on the integrity, strength, ability, surety of a person or thing, confidence, confident expectation of something, hope. And let's see. Then the others are the obligation or responsibility imposed on a person in whom confidence or authority is placed. So there are other definitions of trust, but we're going to look at these for starters. And another definition that I had seen said without evidence as part of this trust. And I don't know that we trust without evidence, but what is trust? And I perceive trust as putting faith in someone or something. So I'm going to look up faith as well. And by the way, if you're making comments and I'm not responding to your comment, it's only because I don't see it. So if you want your comments to be seen, please go to the Facebook page for Enlightened World Network. That's where this is streaming, and you can put your comments in there, and then I will respond to you. I encourage you to do that because it's great to have engagement, and it makes for a much more lively conversation. And the more, the merrier. So please join us. So here's faith. The definition of faith is confidence or trust in a person or thing. And then faith says a belief that is not based on proof, and a system of religious belief, and the obligation of loyalty or fidelity to a person, promise, or engagement. So there's an interaction between trust and faith. And when I say I trust you, one of the sources I think of greatest disappointment in life is is when someone does something that we trusted them to do, it does something against what we trusted them to do. So when we can, if we say someone's betrayed my trust, for example. So Rosalind says, is trust something that is either, is trust something that is either for self and another, while faith is something outside of self and could be a concept? Well, I think that's a great question. And I'm going to address that and then get back to what I was saying before. But we can say, I trust myself. I trust you. We can say, I have faith in myself. I have faith in you. We can say, I trust the universe. I have faith in the universe. I can say, I trust and or have faith that things are going to work out. So frankly, in many respects, I don't believe that there's necessarily a distinction between these two ways of being. Let's look at the ways of being trusting, having faith. I have faith in humanity. I trust humanity. I don't know if I do actually, but I'm just using that as an example. So when we get to the conversation about trust, and one of the biggest betrayals is, somebody betrays your trust. I trusted you to do this, to keep that information confidential, to have my best interests at heart, to whatever we're trusting someone to do or honor. And I think that when we talk about trusting someone, then we need to be looking more deeply to say, I trust you to whatever comes after that. Because I think that we can put our trust in someone or something, and there's blind faith that is attendant to that, right? Like we have grown, we have been re-educated in many ways not to trust the media, right? We have been repatterned to distrust the truth of the information that we're given. In many cases, not all cases. So there are many circumstances where people are trusting, or we have trusted sources. And so what does it mean we have trusted sources? That source of information perhaps has in the past proven through performance of some kind or another to be reliable in some way or another. Like I trust you to show up on time kind of thing. I trust you to be there for me. That's so generic. What does that mean? So Rosalind says, trust being a verb while faith is a noun. Well, that's true. That's true. Trust can be a noun too. Like I have trust for you rather than I'm trusting you, but it can be a verb or a noun. Having faith would be the verb form of faith. So if I have faith in you, I am trusting you, right? That's and I have trust for you. So I think that there's so much overlap between these two words, and I think that we talk about a leap of faith. We don't talk about a leap of trust typically, but I believe that when we trust someone or something, we are making a leap of trust. We just may have more evidence. I think that for many of us, there's a lot of evidence required to have faith as well. We talk about keep the faith, keep the courage, keep the trust that things are going to work out. But to go back to this notion of betrayal, and it works on us as betrayal of self as well as betrayal from others when our trust is betrayed. So if I feel that I can't trust myself, maybe there is a situation, and I think so many of us have encountered this kind of situation in our lives. Before I go on, I just want to say I want you to know that if I'm not responding to your comment, it's because I don't see it. So if you want your comment to be seen, please go to the Facebook page for Enlightened World Network. And that's where this is being broadcast live. And I will see your comments from that Facebook page. So when we have done something or have had a situation in our lives that has been disruptive, that has caused us to question ourselves, then what happens is that it is impacting, it typically impacts our ability to trust ourselves. And what happens is having that one situation where we didn't act in a way that we were happy with can percolate out the ramifications of it, the repercussions of it in our own self-perception can percolate out into a greater distrust of ourselves, misalignment, separation from self, that broadens itself into a deep distrust and misalignment with ourselves. So this is a big deal to be looking at. Good morning, Susan. So good to have you here with us. I'm glad to have you here. Welcome. So when we look at this notion of trust, I think it's important to realize that it is a localized experience. And we tend to, rather than interacting with it as a localized experience, we tend to generalize it. So if I have a friend and I say, I trust that friend, then am I trusting that friend with everything and anything? Oftentimes, it's not the case. Oftentimes, we find ourselves withholding or protecting certain aspects of ourselves because we don't trust someone else fully with that information or that part of ourselves. That can be an issue that we have in trusting ourselves enough to be able to handle whatever might be generated from outside. We might not trust ourselves to be able to rise to the demands of that kind of encounter or confrontation that could occur from sharing something. But I've heard people say, I trust that person with my life. What does that mean? What does that mean? I trust that person with my life. So if you and that person are in a situation where it's your life or theirs, do you trust that person? Are you saying that you're trusting that person to prioritize your life over their own? Certainly, there are people who would do that. I'm just wondering what does it mean? I think we get to be more specific because um, when we look at the flip side of the trust question, we can also be saying, I don't trust that person. And what does that mean? Well, I don't trust that person to be reliable. So that means I can trust them to be unreliable, right? I can, that's something I can depend on. So what are we looking for? We're looking for uh, a way to value reliability. And when we have a betrayal of trust, it's often founded in a difference of values, where I trusted you. And I can say, I trusted you and I'm so disappointed. But what happens? What actually happened when that trust was betrayed? Maybe you told me that you would be available to me in a particular way, and then you weren't. Or maybe you never told me that and I assumed that, and you never agreed to that. And when I find that I don't trust you, it's because you showed up the way that you showed up and I had different expectations. So Susan says abandonment. That can be a form of broken trust, right? We're trusting someone to be there for us in a certain way. So Susan says agreement. Exactly. Trust is founded on an alignment of, or a presumed alignment of values or expectations. I think that that's what we're getting to, is that trust is a presumption of an alignment, an understanding. It's a presumption of an understanding and an agreement. And when a trust is broken, Susan says, broken agreement. That is breaking a trust, right? We are trusting someone to keep their agreement, right? To keep their word. That's often what is happening when a trust is breached, is that someone made us a promise and then broke that promise. And we trusted them to keep the promise. And it may be that our trusting them to keep that promise was was based on an assumption that, well, it is based on an assumption that we made, right? So if I have made arrangements with someone and we have agreed to get together at a specific time and that person doesn't show up, that erodes the trust in that person, in that person's reliability to keep their word, right? And ultimately, I mean, I know people that extend invitations to people to be a place a half hour before they're meant to be there because they can trust that person to be reliably late. So hello, Dan says, I'll sit this one out. Thanks so much for chiming in, Dan. I think that the issue of trust is a big deal. And when broken agreements are broken multiple times, what happens is that our trust is eroded, or we paid somebody and they didn't, these are comments from Susan, they didn't fulfill the responsibility or obligation of that agreement. It's a broken trust. I just think that it's important for us to be responsible in our choice to extend trust. Okay. So the fact that I have extended trust to you does not necessarily obligate you to fulfill that trust. You know, I cannot obligate you to fulfill a trust. You need to choose to honor that trust, or honor that obligation, honor that commitment. And I think that this is a far-reaching conversation, because it goes into the kind of information that we trust. And we have been confronted by a wonderful global experiment to be looking at information that we are given, and to find to curate that information more responsibly, more actively than perhaps we ever have. You know, where it's become a much more visible visible requirement. I don't know. I mean, to me anyway, it's a requirement now to be doing our own research, to be digging more deeply into the stories behind the information that we're presented with. Whether it's medical information, political information, contractual information. I think that we get to be accountable for our decisions to trust. And I know for me in my life, I have been very, very naive and gullible and trusting. My first inclination is to trust that people are telling the truth, that people are acting from their best selves. And as a result, I have had all kinds of experiences that someone who was less trusting would not have had. And I do choose to place trust in the unfoldment of life itself. And I do choose to believe, and this is really a big foundation of trust itself. I do choose to believe that life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. So I operate from that place of trust, which truly is not any different in my experience as I'm speaking it, from operating out of that place of faith, that I am in some way relinquishing control and allowing, or the illusion of control, and allowing the unfoldment, or I'm trusting my innate radar to help me navigate through through life. I have seen many instances for myself and others where we have given over our personal responsibility, given over our accountability to someone else, and suffered dire consequences as the result. If we're going to be trusting, we need to be responsible for giving that trust, and we need to be conscious of what we're trusting someone to do, or to what we're trusting them to be. And Dido says, life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. Welcome, Dido. So good to have you here with us. Dido says, love it. I'm getting better at remembering that in the moment now with practice. It does take practice. It does take practice. And that's probably the biggest thing I trust, is that life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. And from that trust, which I liken to faith, is moving from that colors all my experiences, and it colors the trust that I place in others. You know, we can trust, for instance, here's an example. I think it gets to the heart of what I'm trying to say on a certain level. The story of the frog and the scorpion. You guys probably know that story. There's a frog and a scorpion on one side of a pond, and the scorpion wants to get to the other side of the pond or something, or to the lily pad. And the scorpion says to the frog, give me a ride, let me get on your back. You know, I want to get to the other side of the pond, and you're going there anyway. And the frog says, no way, you're a scorpion. You're going to sting me and I'll die. And the scorpion says, why would I do that? Why would I do that? I want to get to the other side of the pond. And if you die, I die and I'll drown. So the frog thought, that's pretty good logic. Okay, that makes sense. So hop on. There goes the scorpion on the frog's back. The frog's partway through the pond, and bam, the scorpion stings the frog. And the frog dies and the scorpion drowns. And the moral of the story is that a scorpion is a scorpion. You know, the frog, before it died, the frog asked the scorpion, why did you do that? And the scorpion said, I'm a scorpion. And so this is the thing. So many good-natured, trusting people get wounded and disappointed and hurt when the scorpion stays the scorpion. When we recognize traits in people that we then ignore, we see someone behaving in a way that is not behavior we want to be associated with, that we don't want to be treated the way that someone is behaving. And what happens is we rewrite the narrative to say, oh, but they're such a good person. There's a good person inside. And we allow ourselves to ignore the behavior. There may be a good person inside, but we allow ourselves to ignore the behavior. And then when we're the object of the behavior, then we become upset and disappointed and hurt when the scorpion's being a scorpion. You know, it's expecting a zebra to have spots A zebra has stripes. That's part of what a zebra is. And while we can be trusting, we need to be alert to what we're trusting people to be or to believe. And we get to trust our initial observation that we might be overriding by seeing rainbows and fairy dust instead of seeing what's there and still knowing there might be rainbows and fairy dust inside. I mean, I'm all for rainbows and fairy dust. Susan says, how do you know? Well, this is a really good question. And it's coming at the end of our time here, but it's a great question. How do we know? I believe we know in our gut. And I think what happens is we often override our knowing. And pretty much every circumstance that I've talked to people about when they have gotten hurt by somebody, initially they had a gut feeling, they knew, and they overrode it because they wanted to be able to think the best of somebody else. And here's the deal: we can think the best of somebody else and still we can recognize a person's potential. We can recognize the diamond inside someone and recognize that they're not expressing it at this time, and recognize that that they haven't polished their own diamond yet. And it behooves us to pay close attention and to not be projecting a person's possibility on them at the expense of seeing where they are in the moment. Okay. I'm not saying don't support someone in their potential. That's the idea. We want to be supporting people in their potential, but we do not want to ignore the red flags that are currently present because we know who they can be. We need to recognize who they're being in the moment as well. So Rosalind says, if someone wants to change the direction the water is flowing, you could place stones to divert or change the depth of flow. Placing the stones is like the construct of a belief system. I'm just visualizing that. So if I'm placing the stones, then it's re-channeling the water, and the belief system is moving the water in certain ways, is moving life in certain ways, and trusting the water will flow with ease within that construct. But we can't be let down if the nature of the stream swells outside of the construct. So we are either content with the direction, or we change the belief or reframe. That's such a beautiful image, Rosalind. I really appreciate that. And it's true that our beliefs shape the way that we be in the world. So if I believe that the world is a safe place, I'm going to interact with the world differently from the way I would interact with it if I believed that it was a terrifying place. I will be different. I will act and feel differently than from fear versus from presence. And so when we allow ourselves to be present, we have the gut reaction to someone or something. And I can tell you, I've had this so many times where I really want it to be different. And because I really want it to be different, I make concessions, or have made concession after concession, because I wanted what I saw possible with the diamond. So I would make concession after concession and end up in a dangerous place. It's happened a lot in my past. And what I've learned is to trust my gut, to be present to what is rather than what I want there to be. And we also get to be creating potential, creating possibility with an eye also on how things are in the moment. So with that, we kind of ran the gamut here, talking about different dimensions of trust for self, trust for others, that trust is an assumption. It's based on an assumption of an understanding or of common values. And when trust is broken, then we get to recognize, okay, now I don't trust that person. Well, we get to look more specifically. Trust is a bounded thing. So we get to look more specifically at what is it we do not trust that person to do, or what do we trust them not to do. So the foundation of this conversation really is being present, being awake, being aware, and being responsible, response-able, in order to evaluate in a conscious way where we are extending our trust. So that's it. That's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I so appreciate you, your comments, your engagement, your willingness to go into uncomfortable places with these conversations sometimes, and to be more present, to allow ourselves to be more engaged in life and the questions of life. So I so appreciate you. Please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living and EWN One with the Earth. And until next time, oh, it's Friday. So I just wanted to let you guys know that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, we're going to be showing replays. I will not be live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I don't want you to worry. I have other commitments, and I look forward to catching up with you toward the end of next week. So much love to you. Until next time.